Hello everyone, wishing you a day full of joy and happiness. In this episode, Diep suddenly faces a dangerous twist, but the one who appears by her side is not James, it's Tongue, an old friend, willing to risk everything to protect her. But is Tongue's appearance truly by chance, or part of a plan that had been set in motion all along? Join me as we uncover the full story in today's episode. And if you too feel for Diep, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. In the humble kitchen, the soft glow of the wood fire flickered across Diep's face, painting trembling streaks of light that seemed to cradle her gentle smile. Since the afternoon when James's mother had welcomed her so warmly, it felt as though a great weight had been lifted from her heart. To be understood, to be cherished. Those feelings made her steps lighter today, her hands more tender as they prepared each dish. She bent over the stove, tilting her head from time to time, as if listening closely to the bubbling broth, the sound like a quiet murmur of comfort. The sting of smoke reddened her eyes, yet deep within them glimmered sparks of warm hope. This meal held no delicacies, only simple fare. A few pieces of braised fish, a bundle of fresh greens, a plain bowl of soup. But to Diep, each dish carried all the quiet love she had to give. Outside, night began to settle over the mountains, stars glistening as if reflecting the secret joy in her young heart. Carrying the small tray of food to the wooden table in the yard, Diep lifted her gaze to the darkening sky and smiled, shy, yet radiant. She was waiting for him, waiting for the familiar footsteps to echo down the narrow path, waiting for the gentle eyes to rest upon this humble meal. But Diep did not know. Beyond the fragile fence, a pair of cold, piercing eyes were fixed on her every move, silently sowing into the night an unseen, dangerous threat. The sound of a dog barking echoed from the gate, heralding familiar footsteps. James had just returned, his face glowing after a long day. He bent down to pat the little dog's head, a warm smile spreading across his face. In the courtyard, Diep was already waiting beside the simple meal. At the sound, she quickly looked up, her eyes lighting like stars meeting the night sky. In that instant, the joy of waiting burst open, sweeping away the weariness of the day. "You're home!" Her voice trembled softly, yet it carried all the tender happiness within her. James hurried over, sitting down by the meal, his gaze filled with affection as he looked at her. "I'm sorry I'm so late." No more words were needed. Diep's smile alone was enough to make the moment complete. Beneath the golden lamplight, in the humble courtyard, the two of them began their dinner together, where the simplest happiness became the most precious of all. While the bamboo eaves still echoed with the warm laughter of James and Diep, elsewhere the darkness was already weaving its web of sinister schemes. The small house of John and his father lay under a dim yellow light, the stench of cigarette smoke mingling with the heavy aroma of strong tea until the air itself grew suffocating. On the table, an old notebook lay open, alongside neat stacks of cash, a silent signal of the shady dealings to come. The father stroked his chin, his voice rough and cold. "If you want to destroy a man, you don't just defeat him in business. You strip away his source of strength. Remember, Diep is the key." I've already pulled Tongue to our side. He has feelings for Diep. I'll turn him into our pawn. John's voice dropped low, his eyes glinting with ambition and malice. He clenched his fist, savoring the image of James crushed with grief at losing the woman he loved. Through the haze of smoke, father and son exchanged a glance, the same cold smile spreading across their faces, a sign that a new plot had been sown, danger now tightening its grip around James and Diep. But will James be sharp enough to see through the dark game closing in on him before it's too late? That morning, the first rays of sunlight slipped through the window, casting golden streaks across the damp tiles still holding the night's coolness. In the living room, the scent of hot tea mingled with the faint aroma of new wood from the tea table, creating a warmth that felt strangely quiet. James adjusted his cuffs as he stepped out from the small room. His mother was already seated, sipping tea slowly. He sat across from her, gently refilling her cup while talking about the lumberyard, about the busy days of work that had kept him occupied. But though his words flowed easily, his eyes wandered. In his mind, he kept seeing Diep, the frail girl with small shoulders bent beneath the weight of a heavy bamboo basket. The thought pierced him, filling him with both tenderness and unease. The more he thought, the more restless he became. John had returned, a rival not only in business, but a lurking threat to those James cared for most. The malice in John's eyes when they last met haunted him still. James knew that without vigilance, Diep could become the target of his schemes. He sighed softly, suppressing his worry so as not to trouble his mother. Yet his hand clenched unconsciously, as though trying to steady himself. Glancing toward the window where the morning sun poured across the veranda, James made a silent vow. He would never allow anyone to hurt Diep again, even if it meant facing John head-on. After a few brief exchanges, James rose, bowed to his mother, and stepped out the door. The wooden latch closed behind him with a dry, heavy thud. Drawing a deep breath, he set his course for the workshop. Yet his steps dragged, as though bound by an invisible thread. Beyond the gate, the red dirt road stretched beneath the shimmer of early sunlight, so still that the rustle of wind through the bamboo grove was clearly heard. James walked on, the weight of unease pressing heavier with each step. His hand tightened on the handlebar, a firm decision echoing in his chest. Today, he must stop by Diep's house. Only after seeing her safe could he work in peace. He had no idea that from behind a thick cluster of trees by the roadside, a pair of cold, watchful eyes followed his every move. And then, along the road leading to Diep's home, James was abruptly blocked by a staged accident. A motorbike lay sprawled across the path, while two men with their faces covered shouted at each other, feigning a quarrel over fault. James quickly stopped his vehicle and stepped forward, concern in his eyes. He tried to ask, but was met only with impatient gestures, rough dismissals urging him to leave. Standing by the roadside, he glanced at his watch, then back at the scene. A meaningless chaos, yet enough to hold him there. His hands clenched tighter, his heartbeat quickening. Anxiety surged within him, but there was nothing to do but wait. And he had no way of knowing. This clumsy spectacle was in fact a carefully laid trap, one meant to delay him, while danger closed in ever tighter around Diep. The dirt road leading back to the village shimmered in the morning sun. Diep walked briskly, the bamboo basket on her back swaying with each step. That morning's market had brought her a small joy. The gourds were all sold, and in her hand a few coins remained, just enough to buy some salt and fish sauce for the evening meal. On her lips a faint smile bloomed, her eyes glimmering as if eager to share that simple happiness with the whole wide world. A breeze passed, tugging at her brown blouse, blending with the chirping of birds in the trees above. Everything radiated an uncanny peace. Diep had no idea that hidden just behind the roadside thickets, a pair of cold eyes tracked her every move. Two men, clad in dark clothing, crept forward, closing the distance. One tightened his grip on a wooden club, veins bulging across his hand. Their breaths came fast and heavy, like predators poised to strike their prey. Diep walked on, carefree, admiring the wildflowers along the path, unaware that the shadow of danger was falling fast behind her. The thud of heavy footsteps sounded close. Startled, Diep spun around, catching sight of two strangers advancing, their eyes burning with menace. Her heart jolted, her steps faltered. At that very moment, from the end of the narrow lane, Tung appeared, intending only to stop by her house. But as he took in the scene, his face drained of color. Without a second thought, he hurled himself forward, placing his body between Diep and the looming strike. A harsh crack split the air, and Tung's body staggered under the blow. Diep gasped, her cry breaking into panic. "What are you doing?" "Oh God, Tung, are you all right?" Through the pain etched deep across his face, Tung's eyes burned bright with determination, driven by a single desire: to keep Diep safe. In that moment, he thought of nothing else. No fear, no self-preservation. Only the woman he had silently loved for so many years. Diep stood frozen. It had all happened so fast. Her heart wrenched at the sight of Tung shielding her, his body taking the brutal strike. Tears welled in her eyes, her trembling hands reaching toward him, yearning to pull him back, yet powerless against the raw force of violence bearing down. The roar of a motorbike engine pierced the air. After a few frantic tussles, the men caught sight of someone approaching from afar. Panic struck, and they fled, leaving behind a cloud of dust hanging over the dirt road. Silence fell quickly, broken only by the wind whispering through the bamboo and the pounding of Diep's heartbeat in her chest. "Tung, this is my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be like this." Her voice cracked, frantic and full of guilt, her eyes brimming with tears. Tung forced a faint smile, though his breath came ragged and his body trembled from the pain. Without hesitation, Diep wrapped her arm around his back, slowly helping him to his feet. Her small frame wavered under the weight, but her eyes were steady. Step by step, she guided him back toward the farm, sweat and tears mingling across her face. Along the path, the afternoon sun poured down, golden as honey. But inside Diep was a raging storm. The image of Tung collapsing into her arms cut sharp in to her heart. Tenderness, anguish, and relentless self-blame all tangled into one. In the rustic wooden house, the late afternoon light slipped through the gaps in the planks, sketching faint golden streaks across the earthen floor. Diep carefully helped Tung onto the old bamboo bed, her small hands steady but filled with care. From the back kitchen lingered the scent of wood smoke, mingling with the musty odor of aged timber, wrapping the room in an air both familiar and heavy. Swiftly, she poured a cup of warm water and placed it into Tung's trembling hands. "Drink a little." Her voice quivered, but her eyes brimmed with worry. Tung lifted the cup to his lips, taking a slow sip. The rising steam blended with his ragged breath. His face tightened with the stabbing pain in his shoulder and back, yet he forced the corners of his mouth into a faint, pale smile. Within his gaze lay deep gratitude, but also something else, a stirring he could no longer conceal. And Diep, seeing him struggle to smile, felt her heart twist tighter. though her lips kept murmuring reassurance, "Rest a while. You'll feel better." Her mind churned in knots. The image of Tung throwing himself into harm's way, taking the blows meant for her, crashed over her again and again, like relentless waves. In that moment, remorse and anguish surged through her, burning her eyes with tears. Pity, fear, and self-reproach tangled together, an inescapable snarl of emotions she could not untie. Late in the afternoon, Tung pushed himself upright and slowly made his way to the yard. His face still bore the marks of injury, his eyes shadowed with fatigue and thought. From the kitchen, Diep stepped out carrying a freshly boiled egg, still warm in her hands. She sat down beside him, her fingers trembling as she gently pressed the egg against the bruise on his cheek. She moved slowly, her gaze hesitant, afraid a slip might hurt him more. Her heart tightened, guilt weighing heavy for letting Tung suffer in her place, and worry gnawing at whether his pain still lingered. From time to time she glanced up, only to meet Tung's steady eyes watching her, eyes warm, yet leaving her flustered. Just then, at the gate, James slipped in quietly. His steps faltered the moment his eyes caught the scene before him. Beneath the eaves, Diep sat close beside Tung, her small hand rolling the warm egg tenderly across his bruised face. To James, that gentle care pierced like a blade straight into his heart. His chest tightened. All the worry and love he carried for Diep collapsed into a choking ache. In his ribs, jealousy flared, colliding with a hollow despair that stole his breath away. His eyes darkened, his hand trembling faintly against the wooden gate. The moment lasted only seconds, yet to James it stretched like a lifetime. He turned away, his footsteps heavy, his silhouette retreating silently down the lane. No words, no call, nothing but silence, leaving behind a cold emptiness in Diep's heart, one she had not yet begun to notice. As James's figure disappeared beyond the lane, Tung's lips curved into a faint, deliberate smile. His voice came low and measured, laced with hidden intent. "Diep, are you certain James is true to you? A man like him, with wealth and status in his hands, what place could a simple country girl like you ever hold, except to invite sorrow? I fear, to James, you may be nothing more than a passing amusement." His words fell heavy, like stones tossed onto the still surface of a lake within Diep's heart, sending ripples of unease that would not fade. She froze, her pulse racing wildly. And when Tung finally rose to leave, Diep's trembling fingers fumbled for her phone, dialing James's number in desperate hope of hearing his warm voice to steady her soul. But on the other end came only the hollow ring of unanswered calls. No one picked up. Each tone cut into her like a blade,